This is a little extra demo showing how to do a FK-IK switch, or forward kinematics to inverse kinematic switch, on this character's arms. The advantage of doing a FK-IK switch or IK-FK switch is that sometimes there are advantages of having your character's arms in forward kinematics, such as it is right now where he's walking and the arms are following, and having inverse kinematics where the arms, the center of influence is independent from the body, and you'll see that in a minute when I do this switch. I'm going to be using the Goon character. He's going to be walking up to this cube or this monolith, and he's going to be putting up his hands to push it, and once he makes contact with the cube monolith geometry here, the IK is going to be more advantageous for animation, as again you're going to see. One of the things I want to show you too about this character, there's a setting that I have put on this arms. I don't know how it is for your character, and it usually defaults to I've grabbed his hand controller here, and there is a there's something called the chest influence here, and what that is, it's just I'm going to right now it's on, one is on, and I'm going to turn just that hand off, and you're going to see what happens when I turn the chest influence off. You can see that his hand is not really following the body correctly, and there are advantages to that, but I usually don't like that, while his other arm here has the chest influence on and moves with the body as I rotate and move the body. So I like to leave it on, as you can see here, and it gives me a little bit more some control. Okay, so let's get going here. So the Goon character is going to be walking up to this monolith again, and he's going to be putting his hands up on it to push it forward or push it back, and it's going to happen at about frame 50 or so. So I'm going to start with this arm that's closest to us right here, and it is, again, it is in forward kinematics, which means that the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist have to be moved independently, whereas IK is a little different. So he's going to be going up, and he's going to be putting his hands up at about frame 50, where at frame 50 his arms are going to be inverse kinematics, or IK. But I'm going to make that switch beforehand. So I have a keyframe with his shoulder, his elbow, and his wrist at frame 36, and I'm going to move it up to about frame 40, and I'm going to start that move up in forward kinematics. So I'm going to move his shoulder up slightly, keyframe it, move his elbow up to about there. So he's moving pretty fast. He's going to be moving his hand up fairly fast, and I do kind of want that, and I'm going to keyframe it there. So like in 4 frames, and I can change that later, and then I'm going to move his wrist to move up to the monolith. I'm going to keyframe that. So let's just see how that's going to look. Now I'm kind of looking at that and I'm going, well, that's a little fast, but I want it to be at that position at like frame 40. I'm going to grab all 3 of those nodes again, his shoulder, elbow, and wrist, and I'm going to move that up a couple, and let's just see what happens. And that's fine, that's good, and I still have those selected, and I'm going to move actually it back so it starts a little earlier. So he's going to start the move up at frame 34, not what I originally intended, but we can do that. And at frame 42 his arm is getting ready to make contact with the wall. I'm going to bring the elbow down just a little bit. Okay, so at frame 42, that is where we're going to make our switch from IK, from FK to IK. Alright, so we're at frame 42. I'm going to select that little hand controller there, and you'll see here there's IK wait. That is the switch. Right now it is off, so it is FK, not IK. And I'm going to keyframe that right there. So I'm going to key selected. You could also probably key all of them, but I like to make sure, because sometimes some of these controls don't do the S key frame there. And then I'm going to go to frame 43. Is where I'm going to make the switch. So I'm going to go to frame 43 with that selected, and I'm going to change that to IK, and watch what happens. Okay, and I'll show you what's going on there. So now his arm is IK, and I'm going to keyframe that. Let's just make sure that keyframe's there. His IK controllers stayed back where he started the animation. So you can see here, that's where they started, and now they switched at frame 43. So what I have to do, this is the tricky part, is I'm going to have to move his arm back or close to that position where it was when it was forward kinematics. Okay, so I'm going to put it right there, and I'm going to keyframe it. I'm also going to keyframe it at frame 42. So I'm going to just go back and forth. So this is where frame 42 it is FK, frame 43 where it's IK, and you can see that it's not matching up. It's not matching up completely. I'm also going to make sure that my elbow pole vector is on. Okay, so if we go back here, and this should be his elbow pole vector. Let's just see if that works. No, that work. Is that the wrong one? That's his leg pole vector. Let's just undo that. Here it is. It's this one here. I had the wrong one. And you want to, basically that's a goal for his elbow to follow. And you want to bring that pretty close to his body there, and you want to keyframe it at frame 43. I'm also going to keyframe it at frame 42. The reason why I do that is that I can toggle back and forth between 42 and 43 quite nicely. So I'm at 43. Oops. And let's just make sure his pole vector is on. There we go. Elbow pole vector needs to be on. And let's just key select it. For some reason that didn't key there. Keyframed at frame 42. So there we go. So now we have to position his arm at frame 43. And this is the tricky part, because you got to do a little bit of eyeballing. Now you could potentially do this over the course of a few frames and it will blend, but I like to do this over the course of a couple frames. So as you can see, it's a little too high at frame 43 where it's IK. It needs to come down, and I want to make it up. So let's just take a look here. So what I've done, so here we're just going to toggle through frame 34. We're moving, it's forward kinematics, it's forward kinematics, it's forward kinematics, and then it's inverse kinematics here. And I'm just going to make it come down just a little bit, a little forward. I'm going to tweak that just a little bit. And we want to look at it from both sides. So let's just see if it is actually in the right position. So I'm looking at it from kind of a top angle. And I need to come a little bit this way. And let's just toggle through. It needs to come back a little bit. Oops. Like so. And let's just take a look and see how that's working out. It needs to come forward. I'm just toggling through. If I hit the Alt and the period or comma, I can toggle through. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through here and look at that action. And let's just tweak his pole vector a little bit. And look there. Okay, that's looking good. So there I have just made the FK IK switch. And then I'm going to continue on. So I'm going to go to frame 50. Now mind you, he's at IK right now. And I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to position his arm to touch the wall. Okay, right about there. And then I've also going to want to, I'm going to want to position the fingers. So, oops, and I have a little something going on here. This is what happened. I'm going to change my tangents to linear because I had my tangents set to stepped. There we go. Let's just change that right now. Sometimes that happens, is that I have my tangents because I was working in step tangents before and I just want to make them linear. So there's a good little, sometimes that happens, you don't have your tangents the way you want them. So at frame 50 I'm there and I'm going to grab his hand there and I'm going to just kind of position his fingers a little bit. I'm going to go first to the master grit. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit and key selected, and then I'm going to spread them a bit like so. And I'm also going to, let's just see, yeah, I'm going to want to, the master cup needs to straighten out that. And one last thing is I'm going to go down to his thumb, just the thumb base, and I'm going to move it out like that. And let's key that. We're going to go to, where is that master grip? And master cut. There we go. And let's just key those. There we go. So now his arm's not really touching the wall anymore, so we need to just make sure that it is making contact. And it's making contact with the wall. Let's keyframe it right there. And there you go. I'm also going to go back a couple frames, 2 frames. I'm going to bring that back, and he's going to do that. So let's just take a look there and make sure that all of our keyframes are the way that we want them. And it's pretty good.